So I did a standings prediction, or a way too early standings prediction for the Western Conference. I don't know if I'm going to do that for the East. I more so just want to talk about the East next season, because there's a world in which we have 7 legit teams. The team that is the biggest what if is the Nets, right? And if Kyrie and KD are healthy, then they could be great. And I mean, if Kevin Durant is going to be back to his best self, and okay, Achilles injuries are scary, but what was the thing? It's something about how it's like his off leg or whatever, and all the really bad Achilles injuries have been with guys' dominant legs, so that suggests that KD isn't going to have a massive drop-off. So if he's really back to being, maybe he's not arguably best player in the league, but maybe he's the 6th or 7th best, and then you've got Kyrie who can hopefully be healthy, then that could be a hell of a team, you know? And we don't know what's going to happen with their coach. I mean, we've heard some things about Tom Thibodeau, which could be a little weird. I have heard some things about how they want kind of a big name coach, and I don't totally know what that means, but we don't know. But the Nets are just a very, very interesting team that could really shake up the East in that regard, right? But then you just go down the rest of it. I mean, I don't see a reason as to why the Bucks aren't going to be great again. I mean, the only reason would be if they had like a Carmelo last year in Denver season where it's just this black cloud hanging over the team of whether Giannis will stay or not. But to be honest, I feel like Giannis is going to re-sign. I mean, everything's going well there. Seems like he wants to be there, and he just seems like he's kind of against the whole team up with other dudes thing. So, I don't know. To me, Giannis is going to be back, and so I feel like it's going to relax the organization and the team some more, and the Bucks could make some sort of moves. I mean, they do still have the Pacers pick, and they may be able to bust out some sort of an exception, you know, for free agency to get him some solid enough player. DiVincenzo's getting a little better. I think they could get off of Ilyasova's money to get themselves chances at some other decent player. So there's like little things the Bucks can do, and I think Giannis is going to be okay. The Raptors are very interesting because they have got a whole bunch of decisions to make on the open market between Ibaka and Gasol, and I mean they extended Lowry for 1 season, but you know, is he going to want a bigger contract? But with the Raptors, I do think they're still going to be really good next year between Siakam, Lowry, Powell, Anunoby. Just those dudes right there have all been great. I mean, Norman Powell's emergence as a real scorer this season. Granted, he didn't do it like all year, but he did it for a decent chunk of the season, and he was like in and out of the lineup, and then he would come back and he would immediately get right back to it. I mean, his last 5 games, he put up over 20 a game. He had 31 and 37 in another one, and he's attacking the rim, and he's better from 3, and he's shooting a crap ton of free throws. Like, if Norman Powell is going to suddenly be this big-time scorer, or even just a guy who can give you like high teens, then that establishes something pretty great for Toronto. And then after that, I mean, you know, maybe they bring back Ibaka, maybe it's Gasol, Van Fleet is going to be interesting. I mean, I feel like at least one of those dudes is going to be back. And, you know, you still got Nick Nurse who can get interesting. So Toronto just continues to do it all the right way, I guess. You know, I think there was this fear that when Kawhi left, they might have to restart. Not the case. You know, totally not the case at all. Like, they're going to be good for a while. And I think we're going to see that definitely next season. And I feel like if there's any team that's going to be best equipped to defend all these teams that we could have next year in the East, I feel like Toronto could be the team. Although I guess it would depend on what type of bigs they have next year besides Siakam. With the Celtics, you know, Gordon Hayward's situation is interesting. I do think he'll be back next season. I feel like the Celtics are going to be pretty damn similar to what they are already. I feel like when we're talking about teams that have a little bit of unknown to them, especially in the East, I don't know if that really applies to the Celtics. Like, they're pretty committed on salary, and I guess the potential things could be like, can they get some shooting off the bench, or, you know, do they, like, is Kemba Walker healthy? Like, that's kind of what the extent of it with the Celtics. The big question besides all that, though, is just what is Tatum's ceiling for next season, or if we have a playoffs and all that. But it's kind of it for them. Miami is interesting because it's like between Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn. Who's going to emerge as more of a scorer? I feel like Hero would be my pick. I mean, I was very nice to him in my 2019 redraft. I think that guy can, you know, be a, like, can he average over 20 a game one day? I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see where his shot creation skills go, but I think he can certainly be like a 16, 17 point guy, mainly off of just playing off of Jimmy Butler and Bam. So could we see that potentially next season? Potentially, if I can say that word a million times. But the other thing with Miami that is very interesting to me is that they're the Miami Heat, and they are very ambitious all the time. And I think if some star player becomes available, I think Miami's in a position to go for it. I mean, between just all these young dudes I'm mentioning, like Kendrick Nunn and Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, just a lot of good players who don't cost much. And I feel like they could jump on something. The only thing is, they're not loaded with future draft picks, so that makes it a little tougher. But even so, we've seen in certain situations, we've seen very good players move for not a whole lot of picks. Now, they do have their pick this year, which they could trade. It would be on draft night or whatever. So there's that. And then between those other dudes, once again, I think there could be something interesting. If Giannis becomes really available, which I don't think is going to happen, but if it did, granted the entire league would be trying to get him, but I think Miami could have an okay starting point, which would be Bam. So yeah. But that's a whole nother thing that's probably not going to happen. And then talking about Bam, I mean, I mentioned Toronto, and they could be the team that could defend like Kyrie and KD and all them. Bam himself could be the source of defending a lot of these teams. And then when we go to Indiana, I mean, Indiana's going to have Oladipo back 100%, you know what I mean? So they kind of force themselves into the conversation. I mean, I know they're in some ways maybe not the team that we initially think of when we're talking about the East and projecting who's going to be the best teams, but if Oladipo is going to be an all-NBA guard again and average, I don't know, 23, 24 a game while being an awesome defender, then I feel like we're kind of forced, like I just said, to put them into the group, especially when there is still some uncertainty with like the Raptors and their roster makeup for next season. And I mean, I'll get to Philly in a second here, but who knows if they turn it around next season, you know what I mean? So I feel like the Pacers could be kind of right there to be like, hey, wait a minute, don't forget about us. And before you know it, the Pacers are in a conference finals against whoever. And now finally, 8 minutes into the video, I get to potentially the most interesting team that could be the make it or break it point for how good the East is next season. The 76ers. I don't know. That's what we've been saying all year with Philly. We don't know. We feel like we know, and then we don't. One day they look amazing, and Ben Simmons and Embiid find a way to play together, and Horford's looking better. And other days it's rough because maybe Embiid's not going 100%, or the lack of spacing, mainly off of Horford and maybe Richardson a little bit. I mean, Richardson, he's a good shooter, but he's not amazing. He's shooting 33% on about 4 threes a game, and I feel like teams do kind of dare him to take some shots now and then. And you combine that with Horford, and it can get rough. So, like, what are some things Philly could do to shake it up? I could do a video on this, honestly, like Philly's offseason, and I could probably think about it a little bit more. But to be honest, just looking at it without really doing a dive in on it, I don't know. Like, they've committed to a lot of money. Horford's contract is not up for a while. Tobias's, I mean, maybe Richardson would be the one guy you could move, but Richardson's good and cheap, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it is. I mean, would they give up picks to get off of Horford? Like, that'd be that'd be pretty insane, but I don't know. Like, I really don't know what you do besides changing coaches and hoping somebody else can figure it out, you know what I mean? So, yeah. But that's the Eastern Conference for you. As far as other teams who could potentially, like, really get into this, I don't know. I mean, between all the teams that didn't make the playoffs or the Magic, no, I don't think any of them is going to make that huge jump. I mean, could I see Atlanta getting to 40 wins? Yeah, sure. Maybe the Bulls, if they get the culture turned around pretty quickly. Like, there are improvements I could see, but, like, I do think we're going to get, like, basically a 7-team Eastern Conference maybe next season, and there will be a drop-off. But even then, like, 7 legit teams in the East, I don't know if we've had that for a minute. So, it'll be cool, potentially.